I do have screen sharing privileges, but I don't need them. I think it's because of we had the name mix up earlier.
Oh, I see. Okay. Surwali doesn't need it? Okay. Okay. All right. Is everybody pretty much ready? Looks like we've got pretty much everybody on board. So I guess we'll get started. Welcome everybody to this interfaith dialogue, the Jewish-Hindu interfaith dialogue. It turns out that each of our faith traditions has a festival of lights at this time of year. For Hindu people, it's called Diwali or Deepawali. And for Jews, we celebrate Hanukkah in about another week. And so we're gonna have some time to talk about each of these two holidays, the history of them and some of the customs and so on, and what the meaning of the holidays is for us. And we're going to start by singing a song. But before we do that, I think I want to introduce Sachin, and he is going to talk a little about just give a welcome from the Hindu side, and then we're gonna do a song, a Diwali song. Sachin, you're on.
Yes, yes. Namaste, everyone, and welcome. That's a Hindu tradition of welcoming. So this is great to have this festival we celebrating jointly. And as we were talking to Rabbi, we realized there are so many commonalities in this festival, starting from very reason that we celebrate Festival of Lights. So we all idea is to exchange those customs, get to know about our history, about this festival, and get pleasantly surprised with so many of the commonalities.
Yes.
That's the idea of doing it together. This way we look forward to exchanging more information, getting to know each community more, their culture and the values. That's the idea. And we're hoping that this will be the start of, this will be one of the programs that we'll be doing in coming days together to get to know each other more, and we'll have more celebration time.
Great.
So
now do you want to have somebody going to sing a song for us?
Yes, Chaturdashi, you there?
Yes, Ji, we are here. Sachin ji.
Yes, fantastic, fantastic. So we're going to sing, we call it as bhajan. That is how, and mostly these are all in the praise of gods. So this time, Chaturdashi and Akshtaji, they are going to sing the bhajan, which is in the praise of Bhagwan Ram or God Ram. Go ahead, Chaturdashi.
Namaste, everyone. Shubha Deepavali and your festival. So we are going to sing a bhajan, which is by Sant Tulsi Das, and it is a request to Prabhu Ram by Hanumanji. We will go into the details later, but let's start with. So enjoy. तुमको मोरी लाज रघुवीर तुमको मोरी लाज रघुवीर तुमको मोरी राज सदा सदा मैं शरण तिहारो सदा सदा मैं शरण तिहारो तुम बड़े गरीब निवास रघुवीर तुमको मोरी लाज रघुवीर तुमको मोरी लाज रघुवीर तुमको मोरी लाज पतित उद्धारण विरुद्ध तुम्हारो जन के अब खंडन दुख भंजन जन के यही तुम्हारा काज यही तुम्हारा काज रघुवीर तुमको मोरी लाज रघुवीर तुमको मोरी लाज रघुवीर तुमको मोरी तुलसीदास पर कृपा कीजिए तुलसीदास पर कृपा कीजिए भक्ति दान देवो आज भक्ति दान देवो आज रघुवीर तुमको मोरी लाज रघुवीर तुमको मोरी लाज रघुवीर तुमको मोरी लाज. Namaste. Back to you, Sachinji.
Namaste. Okay. That was very meditative. I love the musical instruments too. But I can't, I don't have musical instruments of my own, so I'm going to share screen and put up the song that I chose to do. Let's see if I can find that here. Where did I put it? Oh. You know, whenever I do this, I set it up so that the one I want to show is on the top, but then it's not. Anyway, here it is. It's a Hanukkah song. It's called Ma'oz Tzur, and it's written probably in the mid-13th century. So Hanukkah, as I'll describe a little bit later, is a holiday where we celebrate our liberation from tyrants who tried to control us and get us to worship their foreign gods and otherwise interfered with our liberty and freedom and so on. So we succeeded in fighting that against them and forcing them to leave the country. And then we celebrated our freedom. And so I'll tell more about that story a little bit later. So basically, Hanukkah reminds us of God's presence in our history throughout the centuries, that he's always there for us, and that has allowed us to continue to have a presence in the world for thousands of years, despite our fairly small numbers. There's only about 13 million Jews in the world. So, so this is a song that celebrates that victory, but also seems to be asking for a victory in the songwriter's own time. So many people believe it was written mid-13th century in France or Germany at a time during the Crusades, and the time of the Crusades was not a good time for Jews in Europe. So it could be sort of a plea for rescue from the Crusaders. In any case, I'm going to sing it. It's in Hebrew on the right. Over here is the Hebrew letters. It's transliterated into English letters over here. And the sort of a translation is over here. Maybe I'll translate it after I sing it. Ma'oz Tzur Yeshuati L'chana El Shabeach Tikon Beit Tefilati Visham Toda Nizabeach Le'et Takin Matbeach Min Sar Hamna Beach Azegmor Bashir Mizmor Hanukkah Tamizbeach Azegmor Bashir Mizmor Hanukkah Tamizbeach. So it means awesome.
Good job, Rabbi.
Thank you. So powerful rock of my salvation, to you it is pleasing to give thanks. Establish my house of prayer, and there I will give an offering of thanks. at the time when you prepare the destruction of our enemies, then I will complete with a song of delight, a tuneful song, let's say that, about the dedication of the altar.
And Stephen, is that written in Hebrew?
Yes, so this is written in Hebrew letters over here. And the second to last word here, Chanukah HaMizbeach. So Hanukkah means dedication. And Chanukah HaMizbeach is dedication of the altar. So the holiday of Hanukkah celebrates the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem to the worship of God after it had been defiled with an idol of the god Zeus, the Greek god Zeus. I'll talk more about that later. So first, I think we're going to have a presentation about the story of Diwali, right?
Yes.
Let me stop sharing here. Okay, there you go.
Awesome. Let me share my screen. All right, can y'all see my screen, the one with the
Yes.
Diya in the middle?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So Swarali, you want to start?
Namaste everyone and Shubh Deepavali. We are excited to share a festival that is an integral part of our Dharmic Hindu way of life with you guys. Let's get started. So what is Diwali or Deepavali? The word Deepavali comes from joining two words, Deep and Avali. Deep means light and Avali means row. So together, Deepavali means a row of light. The history behind the start of Diwali. The historical time frame is about 7,000 years ago. The great Prince Rama, his wife Sita, and his brother Lakshmana returned to their kingdom of Ayodhya after 14 years of exile in the forest in a fierce war with the villainous king Ravana. To welcome their prince and to celebrate his great victory over Ravana, the people of Ayodhya lit lamps, danced, fired fireworks, and celebrated in other ways. These festivities have become tradition and are celebrated every year at Diwali. The journey of Bhagwan Rama is remembered through the epic tale of Ramayana, and in the modern day, through productions of Ram Leela, or a play on the life of Bhagwan Ram.
So when is Deepavali celebrated? Deepavali is celebrated during the month of Kartika, or the 8th month of the Hindu calendar. And the Hindu calendar is based on the lunar year. So Deepavali is 5 days long, and the third most important day of Deepavali falls on Amavasya, which is another word for the new moon day, which is traditionally the 15th day of the month of Kartika. So over here you see a picture of all the phases of the moon and the different names we have for those. And Amavasya is the last one at the bottom right, which is the new moon. So there's no moon on that day, and that's when we have the third most important day. Next slide, please. So how is Deepavali celebrated? So first we thoroughly clean our houses and we decorate it with diyas or oil lamps and a lot of light. We turn on all of our lights, and we have a special puja, which is like a form of worship at home and at our temples. We bring our family together and we wear new clothes and we exchange gifts, and we make special dishes and desserts. So like sort of the food, like sweet food and desserts that you might have gotten in that box. And we have Rangoli, which is a art form made of using chalk and sand and a bunch of other things. And most importantly, we light fireworks and we have sparklers and we have a lot of light related celebrations.
That the sand drawing there, that's like little tiny grains of sand that are different colors, right? And made into those shapes.
Yeah, yeah. And Karna will talk about that more in the next slide.
So this is about the significance of diyas. So as you guys heard Swarali say, Deepavali is literally the celebration literally has the word diya or deep in it. And as you can see, kind of we've put it in the right corner of each slide just because it is so significant to this festival. So there's a picture of a diya in the middle. So it's an oil lamp. And the wick of the diya represents negative tendencies of the human personality, like the ego. And then when you light the wick, it represents the burning of these negative qualities. So since the flame of the wick burns upwards, it signifies acquiring knowledge to take us up towards higher ideals. And this is really important in Hinduism because we strive for moksha. So we strive for higher enlightenment and higher knowledge. And this is really significant. So it, signifies light overcoming darkness, or adding knowledge to remove ignorance. So diyas are quite significant, and especially in Deepavali. And then rangolis are also really important. And I know you were just asking about them as well. And they're really pretty. As you can see, they can be quite extravagant, and small ones as well. They're in front of our houses, and they're made, you draw them with their hand. And so it could be flour, it could be chalk, sand. They're very granular, and you make these circular patterns with your hand. And they're gorgeous. So they're really vibrant. They represent vibrant energy, positivity, really good luck, happiness. And they're a big part of Diwali as well in terms of decoration.
So the first day of Diwali, or Diwali, is called Dhanteras. Dhan means money, and Teras means the 13th day. So this day can be considered to be the day of wealth and prosperity. So it's the day that is most auspicious for making new purchases. So we celebrate by buying new things like clothes and jewelry and gold and vehicles and whatever. So on this day, we have many stories that are related to this day, but one story that we can mention is on this day, Dhanvantari, who is considered to be the god of health or medicine or Ayurveda, which is the traditional Indian medicine, he emerged from the ocean carrying a pot of Amrit. And Amrit is the nectar that gives immortality. So on this day, he came from the ocean with this pot. And so we have another story of a princess who stopped Yamraj, who is the god of death, from entering her house by piling all her wealth and all her gold in front of the door so that she could save her husband's life. And so we see like the importance of wealth and prosperity that we have mentioned here. So a takeaway that I have from this day is that in this day we should remember nature and all the prosperity and bounty it has for us, because it was from the ocean that Dhanvantari appeared and he emerged from, and from the ocean we got all our knowledge, and from nature we get all our knowledge about health and medicine and all those things. And also it's a day to remember that you should clean your house and you should have a happy family.
So the second day of Diwali is called Narak Chaturdashi. It's known as different names in different areas. So Rup Chodas is also another name, but Chaturdashi is 14th. So it's the 14th day of the lunar month. And this day is known for the triumph of good over evil. So it's on this day that we abolish laziness, other evils, other negatives in our life, and we say good triumphs over evil. So there's a lot of stories associated with this day, but one in particular is when Bhagwan Krishna, so whenever I say Bhagwan, it's our title for God, or so it's the equivalent of me saying Lord Krishna. So Bhagwan Krishna killed a monster named Narkasur, and Narkasur had abducted 16,000 young girls, and by killing Narkasur, Bhagwan Krishna freed these young girls. And so this story symbolizes freeing the world of evil. And also because of this story, the day itself is known as Narak Chaturdashi. So Narkasur, Narak, and Chaturdashi, the 14th day of the month. On this day, people wake up early in the morning before sunrise, and they take an oil bath. And so an oil bath has good, like scientific good impacts for the body, but symbolically, it is cleansing our body to get rid of any physical or mental impurities and starting afresh. On the right, you'll see a puja thali here. So puja is worship, and thali is a plate. So this is a plate of worship, puja thali. And on here, you'll see the diyas we talked about. You'll see haldi, which is turmeric, kumkum, which we use to put a tilak on our head, and incense sticks as well. And then we have the third day of Diwali. This is the most important day of Diwali, and this is the day we pray to Goddess Lakshmi. We do Lakshmi Puja. So Goddess Lakshmi represents wealth, prosperity, and this day specifically symbolizes the importance of women, and that wealth is to be worshipped and not abused. And this is a really important lesson for us. So this day has a lot of celebration. It's the biggest day, it's quite large celebrations. And one of the reasons is because it's believed that Bhagwan Rama, so that story that Swarali mentioned in the beginning, so it's believed that it's on this day he returned back to his kingdom of Ayodhya. he returned back home. And to welcome him back home, the residents of Ayodhya had lit up the city with diyas everywhere. And so we light up our houses with diyas as well. Another story associated with this is goddess Lakshmi, who, by the way, is in this picture right here. She wanted she wanted Bhagwan Ganesh, so another god of ours, to be her adoptive brother. So she went to Ganesh's mom, goddess Parvati, and asked her, "Can Bhagwan Ganesh be my adoptive brother?" Goddess Parvati told goddess Lakshmi, again in this picture, no, you don't stay anywhere in one place, you move around too much, that's not possible. So then goddess Lakshmi said, on this day, the Amavasya, the 15th day of the Karthik month, I'll be with Bhagwan Ganesh, we'll be together. And so people who pray to us together will bless their house together. And so on this day, whenever we do Lakshmi Puja, we also do Ganesh Puja. So we pray for wealth and prosperity, but also to remove obstacles. And people conduct this puja at their house, at their place of business, if they're business owners, and it's very auspicious.
Also known as Bali Pratipada, Day 4 of Diwali or Padwa is a celebration for remembering power should not corrupt, and to remind us to stay humble no matter how much power you have. This day is also dedicated to the husband and wife relationship, and as a symbol of love and affection, gifts are exchanged between married couples. So the story of Padwa, Bali was a very powerful king with his kingdom reaching far off lands, as well as the three worlds or the three loka, which consist of earth, the atmosphere, and the heavens, or the all-encompassing outer space. King Bali, although known for his bravery, uprightness, and dedication to Bhagwan Vishnu, became powerful by amassing property from the noble people of the land. Ruling over so much territory upset the balance of energy and power in the world. The Devas, or the beings with the task of maintaining balance, realized that they needed to distribute the power and property back to the people. When Mahabali announced that he would be performing a yagya, or a sacred fire sacrifice, pictured at the left, to honor the deities, the Devas went to Bhagwan Vishnu to help restore cosmic harmony. During the yagya, King Bali vowed to grant anyone any gift they wanted. Vishnu took the avatar or incarnation of a dwarf Brahmin called Vamana, shown in the middle picture, and approached Mahabali. The king offered anything to the boy: gold, cows, elephants, villages, food, whatever he wished. The young boy said that one must not seek more than one needs, and that all he needed was a property right over a piece of land that measured 3 of his paces. Mahabali agreed. The avatar Vamana grew to enormous proportions and metamorphosized into the Trivikrama form, and covered everything Mahabali ruled over in just 2 paces. For the 3rd pace, Mahabali offered his own head to the Vishnu avatar. Pleased with the dedication, humility, and integrity of Bali, Vishnu granted him a boon that he would return to earth for 1 day a year to be with his people, to celebrate, and to be celebrated. This is the day that is celebrated as Bali Pratipada, or the annual return of Bali to earth. Pratipada means occasion, commencement, or first day of a lunar fortnight. In addition to this, the Hindu Vikrama calendar was also started on this day. In many parts of India, such as Gujarat, it is the traditional New Year's Day. Padwa is traditionally celebrated with decorating the floor with colorful image of Bali in honor of the namesake of the day, of nature's abundance, a shared feast, community events, and sports, musical concerts, drama, or poetry sessions as pictured below.
The last day of Diwali is called Bhai Dooj, and it has many different names across India, but Bhai literally means brother, and Dooj means the 2nd day after the new moon. So on this day, the sister blesses her brother through an arti or a puja, which is a form of worship, and in turn, the brother vows to protect his sister. It's a day to renew bonds between siblings, and also for wives to visit their hometown and to visit their brothers and their family again. So we have many stories about this day, but specifically there's another story about Yamraj, who you might remember is the god of death, and he was mentioned earlier. And this is a picture of him on the right. So on this day, Yamraj visited his own sister, Yamuna after 12 long years, after 12 long years of not seeing her, and she greeted him with the tilak, which is the red dot on the forehead, and an arti or puja. Since then, Yamraj visits Yamuna every year on this day, and that's why this day is special and called Bhai Dooj. So Yamraj declared that any brother who received an arti and a tilak from his sister on this day should not be afraid of death. So that's essentially the theme of all these stories about Yamraj, is that the reason we have all these stories about him is so that we personally don't become afraid of death if we continuously hear about him in stories. So the meaning behind this day and the takeaway from this and what we're supposed to remember is that no matter how busy you are, you should always find time to visit your family. Especially as a brother, you should visit your sister and you should remember them.
And that's a little bit about Diwali or Deepavali. Shubh Deepavali or Happy Diwali, everyone.
Okay, that was great. Let me turn my camera on again. Okay, so now I'll talk a little about Hanukkah. So let me share the screen here to tell the story of Hanukkah. So that's the song we sang. And there's Happy Hanukkah. Let's see if we can do from current slide. There you go. The story of, can everybody see that? Yes? Okay. So Alexander the Great conquers this huge empire at the age of 32. He dies at the age of 32 in the year 323 before the Common Era. So he's conquered all this territory. This is a huge amount of Asia, although noticeably not India. But he did conquer what was known as Mesopotamia, the sort of the region between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers over here. And for Jewish purposes, the important part is that he conquered this territory right over here, which is where Israel is. So we are kind of at the eastern end of the Mediterranean Sea, south of what's Turkey up here, south of Syria, which is kind of over here, and north of Egypt. This is the northeast corner of the African continent. So this is Egypt over here. So anyway, Alexander the Great conquers all of this territory and brings Greek civilization, Greek culture, Greek language, Greek literature, Greek philosophy, and also, unfortunately for us, Greek gods to the entire world. When he dies, his kingdom is divided amongst his five of his generals. And so this shows the territory of the 5 generals in different colors. Ptolemy is the general who rules from Alexandria in Egypt. And Seleucus is this orange part over here. This is only in 303 before the Common Era, about 20 years, I guess, after Alexander the Great dies. So this kingdom was ruled by Antigonos, but he loses out pretty early on. So the Seleucids end up conquering this whole territory over here. And so now Israel is kind of between the Ptolemies down here and the Seleucids up in the north. And for a brief time, we're ruled by the Ptolemies from Egypt. And then we end up being ruled by the Syrian Greeks, which wasn't horrible until Antiochus IV, who called himself Epiphanes, which means God made manifest. Here's a statue of him, little bust of his head. I guess some artist's depiction of what he must have looked like. And Antiochus IV, among other things, decided to put a statue of his god Zeus, the chief god in the Greek pantheon, in our temple. This is our temple in Jerusalem. So for those of you who know about the Jewish people, we don't believe in statues. We don't believe in idols. We don't believe that God has any form. And worshiping forms, we believe, is not acknowledging God for God's essence, which is formlessness. And so putting a statue in our temple was blasphemous for us. And then he slaughtered pigs besides as sacrifices to the god Zeus. And of course, Jews don't eat pigs. So that was 2 big no-nos for us. So we, what happened was a group of priests, a family of priests, named the Hasmoneans. One of them was named Judah the Maccabee, which might mean Judah the Hammerhead. We don't really know exactly, but people assume that Maccabee is somehow like a patish, a hammer. In any case, this family, this Hasmonean priestly family, starts a revolt against the Greeks. They started in 168. 168 was the year that the statue was put up in the temple. 3 years later, they managed to recapture the temple from the Greeks and take the idol out of the temple, re-purify it for the worship of one God. And one of the first things they did was they put up this 7-branched lamp. This is a golden lamp that had been sort of a symbol of God's presence in the temple since it was first built by King Solomon. So they reconstructed the lamp and lit the bowls. Now there's 7 branches in the lamp that was in the temple. 7 in the Jewish world is a number of significance because we believe the world was created in 6 days and God rested on the 7th. So the number 7 reminds us of God's creation, God creating the world. And 7 is also the Sabbath day, the day of rest, which is a holy day. So it's also a number of holiness. And the lamps, very much like in your tradition, the lamps also represent wisdom and knowledge, casting out the darkness of ignorance, right, and so on. But also the lights represent God's presence in our lives. So one of the first things the Hasmonean family did when they recaptured the temple was to relight this golden lamp in the temple. Remember, it had 7 branches. There's a story that is told in the Talmud, which is written several hundred years after the event, which says that when they captured the temple, there was only 1 jar of pure olive oil still usable for lighting this lamp. And when you filled each of the 7 bowls with that 1 jar, the lamps would burn for 1 night, but then there would be no more oil to light the second night. And according to the legend, it would take 8 days for them to go out and harvest more olives and press them into olive oil. And so the legend says they lit the lamps anyway with confidence that God would allow them to burn for 8 days. And by the time the 8 days were up, they had new oil to use to keep the lamps lit. That's the story that's told in the Talmud. However, it's the first time we hear about it is hundreds of years after the event. Most modern historians will tell you it probably didn't happen. The reason they tell you that is because we have very detailed stories of the events as they happened. First Maccabees, Second Maccabees are 2 books that were written by Jews at the time and were kept in the Christian Bible. We didn't consider them holy books, so we didn't include them in our Bible, but they were written by Jews at the time, and they describe in great detail the battles of the Maccabees, the Hasmonean family against the Syrian Greeks, and how they recaptured the temple and they rebuilt it. And here's what it says in the 2nd book of Maccabees about that. So, and this is again written pretty much right after the events happened. Maccabeus, that was Judah, right? One of the sons of this family of priests, with his men led by the Lord, recovered the temple and the city. He demolished the altars erected by the heathens, that would be the Greeks, in the public square and their sacred precincts as well. And the sanctuary was purified, oh yes, on the 25th day of Kislev. So you had mentioned your calendar and I forgot to talk about that. So in the Jewish calendar, we also have a lunar calendar like you do. And so the lunar months are also different from the Western calendar months. So the month that falls around the time of December in the Jewish calendar is called Kislev. And so it was on the 25th day of Kislev, the day they actually purified the temple again. The book of Maccabees also mentioned that the temple was defiled by the Greeks 3 years earlier, exactly on the same day, the 25th day of Kislev. So the same day in the Jewish calendar that they defiled the temple, we recaptured it and purified it in the Jewish calendar. So then it says, this joyous celebration went on for 8 days, and it was like Sukkot, which is a holiday called the Feast of Booths. Sukkot is the Hebrew word for booths. We normally build booths out in our backyard and dwell in them instead of in our houses to sort of remind ourselves of nature and the fragility of life, right? A booth is not as stable as a house. So it reminds us of the fragility of life. And it also reminds us of our ancestors wandering in the desert for 40 years after leaving Egypt, because they lived in traveling tents. So we celebrate the Feast of Booths, but the Feast of Booths is celebrated around in September time, about 3 months before Kislev. So here they say, right in the book of Maccabees, they celebrated for 8 days, and it was like this Feast of Booths that happened 3 months earlier when they didn't have the temple. For they recalled how only a short time before they had kept the festival, the Feast of Booths, while living like animals in the mountains. And so they carried lulavim, which are palm branches, and etrogim, which are kind of a cousin of lemon fruits, which we use on Sukkot, the Feast of Booths. We use these two things on Sukkot. So they carried these symbols of the Festival of Booths, and they chanted hymns to God. Oh, there's special psalms that we sing of praise to God on the Festival of Sukkot, who had triumphantly led them to the purification of the temple. And the public assembly decreed that the entire Jewish people should observe these days every year. So the real reason that Hanukkah is 8 days long is because the Feast of Booths that happens normally in September is a 7-day holiday with an 8th day tacked on at the end for a total of 8 days. And so the priestly family celebrated the rededication of the temple like the Feast of Booths for 8 days. Why did they want to celebrate the Feast of Booths even though it was 3 months late? And the answer is because King Solomon, when he built the temple in the first place, dedicated his temple on the Feast of Booths. And this priestly family were religious, pious people, and they knew that the temple had originally been dedicated on the Feast of Booths. And so while they were fighting to get control of the temple in September, they were thinking to themselves, if only we could capture the temple now, we could dedicate the temple on the Feast of Booths like King Solomon did. But they weren't able to do that until 3 months later, so they decided they'd celebrate the Feast of Booths anyway, 3 months late. And that is the real reason why Hanukkah is 8 days long. So because it's an 8-day holiday, we light special lamps. These lamps originally were supposed to be modeled after the lamp that was in the temple with 7 branches. But because the holiday is 8 days long, we want to make it with 8 days, 8 candles for the 8 days. And we add an extra one, I think maybe partly to keep the symmetry of what was a 7-branch lamp, now a 9-branch lamp. But we also say that this extra lamp is a service lamp. It doesn't count as one of the days of the holiday. It's just a service lamp. We use it to light the other ones. And so that's why it's a 9-branched lamp. So here's a couple examples of it. And by the way, Diwali is lamps in a row. And the tradition is to put the candles in a row so that you can count them across. And Hebrew goes from right to left, so you count from right to left. The first candle you put in is this one on the right, and then the second night you put in 2 candles, and the third night you put in 3 candles, and then 4 candles until the last night when you put in all the candles, right? This over here I put in for Star Trek fans. This is a menorah on the Enterprise, the Starship Enterprise. You'll notice that they're in a row, but they're in 2 rows. When we light the lamps, we say these blessings. We praise God, ruler of the universe, who added holiness to our lives and commanded us to light the lights of Hanukkah. And we also praise God for the miracles that he performed for our ancestors from ancient days until our time. And the third blessing, which is we only recite on the first night of Hanukkah, we praise God for granting us life and sustaining us and enabling us to reach this day. And then we sing or chant this verse in Hebrew usually, which reminds us not to use the lamps for light. They're supposed to be like neon signs. They just advertise the miracle of Hanukkah, right? So we kindle the lights and we recall the wondrous triumph and miracles and victories that you wrought for our priests, Kohanim or priests, our ancestors from ancient days until our time. These lights are sacred throughout the 8 days of Hanukkah. We're not to make use of their light, but just to look at them, enjoy them, and be reminded to thank and praise God for the wondrous miracle of our deliverance. Okay, because the story is told about the oil lasting for 8 days, we eat this very unhealthy food on Hanukkah. foods that are fried in oil. So for instance, potato pancakes, these are fried potato pancakes. You grind up the potatoes and mix them with onions and other spices, and then you grill them in oil. This is, sometimes you put them with applesauce or sometimes with sour cream. Depends on what you like. So that's one thing to do. In Israel, it's more common instead to make donuts. Donuts are also fried in oil. And the particular donuts that they use are jelly donuts. They're filled with jelly in the middle here, and then powdered sugar on the outside. So we eat this unhealthy food on Passover, on Hanukkah, and that reminds us of the oil of the lamp. And then we also play this game, which I think you have in the boxes that we sent out to your group. These are called dreidels in Yiddish, or sivivon in Hebrew. That just means tops. It's the Hebrew or Yiddish for tops, things that spin. To dreh in the Yiddish means to turn. So a dreidel is a turning thing. And sivivon is the same thing, comes from lesovev, to turn. So these are different examples of dreidels. They're four-sided. It's based on a gambling game. There are 4 letters, Hebrew letters. Here I gave you these 2 symbols down here to show you the 4 letters. Gimel, Hey, Shin, and Nun. And the way you play the game is you spin the top, and then whichever letter it falls on top of, you do something. So I'm going to show you what the rules are in a second here. Okay, so the letters also came to stand for Hebrew words. So the Nun letter stands for the Hebrew word nes, which means miracle. Gimel is the Hebrew word, stands for the Hebrew word gadol, which means great. Hey stands for the Hebrew word haya, which means happened. And shin is the Hebrew word that stands for sham, which means there. So putting it all together, a great miracle happened there. So the dreidel reminds us with these letters about, again, the miracle of Hanukkah, but they also have a meaning for the game. So the nun means nothing happens. In Yiddish, it's nein, or German, nein, nothing. So you spin, and if it lands on nun, nothing happens. Everybody puts 1 coin into the pot, and then you spin the dreidel. If you land on a nun, nothing happens, and the dreidel goes to the next person. And I don't know whether it goes clockwise or counterclockwise, doesn't matter. Next person gets the dreidel, everybody puts in another coin and spins again. Let's say it lands on gimel. That means that person gets to take the entire pot, ganz, which means all in Yiddish. And if the next guy, then everybody puts in a new coin and the next guy spins, and let's say he gets a hey, so that means take half of what's in the pot, that's halb. And then everybody puts in another coin and the next guy spins. And if he gets a shin, that means shtel, to put 1 in. He has to put an extra coin in. And then everybody puts another coin in and the next guy spins. So that's the way the game is played. So the reason we play this game, which is not the greatest of gambling games, but I guess it's entertaining sort of to see how you can spin the top. The reason we play this game, the reason we tell the kids we play this game is that we say that the priests, when they were fighting the Greeks, would be planning their great plans against the Greeks. And if they saw some Greek soldiers coming by, they'd put their plans away and hide them and take out these dreidels, and they'd play this gambling game and they'd pretend to be these sort of never-do-wells, you know, who are just goofing around and not doing anything important, playing a stupid gambling game. So then when the Greek soldiers would leave, they'd take out their plans and go back to playing again. That's the story that we tell our kids. Now I'm going to tell you the real story, so you will know this, and you can tell the Jewish kids who haven't heard this yet. The real story why we play this game is it was a very popular gambling game in Europe in the Middle Ages. Everybody was playing it in Germany, in France, in Italy, and all over the place. And depending on what language they spoke, they used different letters for the 4 sides of the top that would indicate take everything, take nothing, take half, or put in 1. The Jews in Germany used the German words because the Jews in Germany spoke Yiddish, which is mostly the German language in Hebrew letters. And so they started playing this game. Why were they playing this on Hanukkah? The reason is because the kids were home from Hebrew school. They got off that week because it was a holiday. And apparently they were pestering their mothers who were trying to cook and clean around the house. It was a very patriarchal society, and it was the woman's job to clean the house and cook and take care of the kids. The dad was out supposedly earning money. In any case, so the mothers wrote to a rabbi who had asked, these kids are bothering us. We don't have video games. They haven't been invented yet. We don't have television, so kids can watch and not bother. We don't have computer or whatever, so they won't bother us. But we do have this silly gambling game that everybody's playing all around the world. Can we have, now Jews are not supposed to gamble. It's forbidden to gamble because you're asking God to help you with a matter of luck. You're not supposed to do that. So what they said was, can we let the kids play this gambling game if they only play for a few nuts or coins, some small coins? They're not playing for big money, just little games, just to keep them busy so they're out of our way so we can cook and clean the house. And so the rabbi said, yeah, for that purpose, during Hanukkah only, you can let them play this gambling game. And so that's how the dreidel became associated with Hanukkah. Meanwhile, we then developed Nes Gadol Haya Sham, and so we now had another connection to Hanukkah, and the rest of Europe moved on to better games like dice and roulette wheels and cards and all kinds of other gambling things. And we continued to play the dreidel game because we played it on Hanukkah. Anyway, here's the coins that we sometimes use. Instead of real coins, we take chocolate molded in the shape of coins and covered with gold foil, so it looks like coins. And this is called Geld, which is the German word for coins or money. So, so where we used to play for raisins or nuts, now we typically play for these chocolate coins, which also should be in your boxes. And that is the story of Hanukkah.
Interesting, very interesting.
So, what are we were going to show the video.
Yeah. So for everybody's benefit, what we have done, when I was talking to Rabbi, he showed interest that, how this Diwali, you heard a lot about it in the presentation, but what we do at home. So we wanted to give you real life experience of how we celebrate Diwali at home. It's a 5-day festival, so a lot of activities happen. So I put together some pictures and a few videos from some of the families where you will see how we are making some food. You will see how deep fried and sweet they are. Some of them you would have got in the boxes, those sweets. And also you would see rangoli and decorations done at home and the puja, the worship that we do at home. So let me share my screen just a second. Yeah. Okay. Why it is not, huh? Yeah, I'm going to play this now.
Happy Diwali!
Jai Shri Ram!
Jai Shri Ram. So that was a short glimpses.
That's great. I'm really glad you got the fireworks in there because we can't do fireworks too much this year.
Yes. So, I know, I mean, some of the pictures were from last year, actually. We didn't have too many friends and coming together this time. So,
Okay.
what I'm going to actually invite Saumitra to share his experiences about how we are working together with the Jewish community in the US. So before that, I'll just talk about a few seconds about what HSS is. So for the benefit of all of you, HSS is a US registered voluntary non-profit social and cultural organization. We strive to promote universal values of humanity, peace, and harmony, which is basically a big part of the teachings of Hindu Dharma, which is, we call it as way of life. And HSS instills the values of volunteerism, and we work in local communities through various services we do on a year-round basis through various initiatives. So this is the HSS in short for you. We have with us, fortunately, this time, Saumitra ji, who is a coordinator of HSS activities, worldwide coordinator. He's a full-time volunteer of HSS. He graduated, he did his engineering from India, and then he did his master's in mechanical engineering from Canada. And he has been a full-time volunteer serving in various countries, Caribbean countries, Canada, and now in the US. So he is here in Houston with us. So I requested him to share his experiences. So he would, Saumitra ji.
Sure. Thank you, Sachin ji, and thank you, everyone. I really feel very happy, blessed to be with all of you. And I learned a lot. Thank you, Rabbi Stephen Morgan, and everybody from the congregation of Beth Yeshurun. And I just happened to be in Houston, and I'm just trying to remember all the places that I have interacted with the Jewish community. And every time I have met with the Jewish leaders or rabbis or just community members, every time it has been an enriching experience, and this was also not an exception. When I was in Mumbai, working at the grassroots, I met some Jewish families who are in India for centuries. As you may know, that especially on the western coast of India, in different parts of different states, Jewish people came centuries ago. And they settled there, they were working, and there are synagogues. Even now, if you go to India, some of the synagogues are still there. Very few Jewish people remain. The community is small now because many of them returned to Israel after the formation of Israel. Then I remember meeting with Jewish community in the East Coast of the United States, in California, West Coast, even in the UK and Australia. Right. And we share a lot of things in common, Hindus and Jewish communities. We are the two most ancient religions, traditions in the world. And we have a festival of light, both the religions. Yep. Both the communities suffered a lot in the history, just like the Jewish underwent tremendous amount of suffering and invasions and occupation. So did Hindus. There were attempts to break the temples, to occupy, to convert, and still both the communities endured it and came out victorious in a way, and once again quite vibrant throughout the world, in the original homeland as well as in the diaspora. So today we are not only reminder of the suffering, but the celebration that we are doing together. Obviously, we would have wished to meet in person and would have loved to share the mithai from the Hindus, as well as the delicious potato pancakes and the donuts that were shown in the pictures.
Right.
That would have been really wonderful, but maybe next year. This is the time when we celebrate. We also think about the larger society, people who are needy, and HSS has taken up this program of food distribution to the needy through various food banks. And I'm sure the Jewish congregation also and the Jewish community everywhere is doing the same or will do the same.
Yes.
Hanukkah,
Sure.
to give back
Right.
to the needy people in the society. So that is something else that we can really collaborate on and keep working. One is celebrations and doing something together as charity, things like that. We as Hindus living in the United States have a lot to learn from the Jewish community, I feel, because the way we really are appreciative of the way the Jewish community is organized, whether it is running of institutions, the Jewish community centers, the educational institutes, charity organizations, refugee resettlement, so many. And we have a lot to learn, and we look forward to working with you, not only here, but everywhere throughout the world, because HSS has presence in almost 45 countries. And wherever the opportunity is there, we seek to work with the Jewish community as well. Now, next time when I speak to any other such event, just like I spoke about meeting the Jewish community in Australia and the UK and India and New York and California, now I can add Houston also to my list. And for that, I feel very happy. And thank you very much for sharing all that was shared here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us, and have a safe travels.
Thank you.
So does anybody have any questions for any of us about anything? Any follow-up questions people have? Could put them in the chat box if you do.
I think this is a very good start.
Okay.
And I think we have to think together how we are going to take it forward in the long-term perspective. We both are doing, I think, some good in the society, and how that can be combined together to make it effective, impactful in the society for the greater good of wherever we live.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us this evening then, and wish you all a good Festival of Lights, whichever way you celebrate it, and a happy Thanksgiving, since that's the American holiday coming up soon. So thank you all for participating. I really appreciate the wonderful celebrations together, and we look forward to learning more.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making this, agreeing to do this jointly. And we definitely look forward to, as some of the comments are saying, look forward to having more such programs doing together. And as Soumitra says, maybe doing some of the local work, service work together.
Great. Okay. Well, again, so thank you all. I guess we'll say good night.
Yes.
Namaste.
Good night.
Namaste. Namaste. And shalom.
Shalom.
Namaste. Hello, everyone. Shubhratri. Good night.
Namaste. Shalom. Bye. Thank you very much.